All right, so we're live. Thank you so much for joining us for another daily live conversation. Today, we're going to be focusing on all things HR when it comes to all of the recent updates with the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, the FMLA Act, and then all of the financial, what's the word I'm looking for? Financials.
Updates, I guess, that the government has given us.
Thank you, Isabel. I appreciate that. So speaking of that, we have Isabel here from Stream Dental HR. She is a brilliant HR strategist. She is focused today just diving into all of the updates that are happening right now in the US for our clients. So give us the lowdown. What has happened? What are the new updates with the Family First Coronavirus Response Act?
Okay, well, yes, of course. Thank you, Samantha. So I wanted to just briefly go over again about going over the first Family Coronavirus Act, or as I'm going to call it for the remainder of this video, FFCRA, just because it's shorter. So as of yesterday, the FFCRA has gone into effect, and it'll be in effect up until December 31st of this year. The Department of Labor has provided a poster so employers can post it in their offices and provide it to their employees to make sure that they know what their rights are. It shows in detail what is expected and what each employee could potentially be eligible for. Now, if you're currently working from home and your employees are not in the office, you're able to send this poster as well through an email, so they are also aware of what the new bill is about, and then also what they're eligible for. Now, I did want to kind of go into a little bit deeper into the FFCRA, so the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, and then the extended FMLA, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so going back to the emergency paid sick leave. So there, with the FFCRA, there's kind of multiple options for employees to potentially be, take a leave due to the circumstances with coronavirus. So employers are going to be required, as of yesterday, to pay their employees 80 hours of fully paid sick leave to their full-time employees. So that would mean, as of yesterday, if you have employees that are working and they meet this requirements, you're going to be mandated to follow them. So this leave is going to be provided, and has already been in effect, like I said yesterday, and it will go up until the end of the year. Private employers of 500 or fewer employees are going to be mandated to follow them. And covered employees are going to be eligible for this paid sick leave for 6 different reasons, and I'm going to go into those. The first one is employees are subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order related to the coronavirus. Number 2, employees has been advised by a healthcare professional or healthcare provider to self-quarantine due to the coronavirus. Number 3, employees is experiencing some symptoms. Number 4, employees caring for an individual who's subject to an order described in number 1 has been advised by someone. And number 2 has been advised by the healthcare professional. Number 5, employee is in caring of their child because the school closure or daycare is closed and is unable to, they don't have someone to take care of the child, so they need to stay home for that. And number 6, employee is experiencing a similar condition specified by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. So any of those 6 reasons, employees are going to be eligible for this paid sick leave. Now, if this is only going to be for employees who have worked at least 30 days in your business, so if they just started working like 2 weeks ago, they won't be eligible for this. And any of these reasons are going to be paid. Employees are going to be paid their full regular rate of pay. Now, the only way that will change will be employers are going to be required to pay employees 2/3 of their wages, not to exceed, a certain amount per day. Employees, if they're going to be taking care of a child or they're taking care of a family member due to this the coronavirus. So those 2 are going to be the only things that are going to differ from full amount that they get paid to the 2/3 of the wages that they would get paid.
Okay. Okay. That's definitely a lot of information. And it sounds
Mhm.
though that a lot of those 6 areas covers what most people are going through right now,
Right.
of being required to self-isolate or taking care of a family member. So what about, walk us through the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, so the
Okay.
FMLA?
Yeah, of course. So, in the past, FMLA used to only be for people who had 50 or more employees, but obviously, due to the circumstances, things have changed. So now the leave would cover employees who are unable to work or telework, so working remotely, because the employee is caring for their child who's 18 or less, because school is closed or childcare provider is unable to come due to the health emergency. So this goes into effect yesterday, and it'll continue up until the end of the year. So eligible employees are anyone who has been employed for at least 30 days, and any employer who has 500 or less would be required to do this paid sick leave. Now, this is a 12-week paid sick leave. Employers are not required for the first 2 weeks, but employees can, choose to use PTO, any sort of paid leave that they have accumulated. But the first 2 weeks are not mandated for the employers. After those first 2 weeks, employers may have to, compensate for that time. So employers must pay 10 remaining weeks of leave at the rate no less than 2/3 of the employee's regular rate of pay. It cannot exceed $200 per day, and it won't be over a certain amount, throughout this whole time. Now, there's different things that go into this, and filing for this is a lengthy process. So I highly recommend that you go and talk to an FMLA specialist who is very well versed in, filing for this leave and knowing all the things that goes into it, because it's a very lengthy process and there's so many documents that you have to submit in order for you to be able to get this leave. So I highly recommend that you do contact an FMLA specialist in order for you to do so. Now, employers that are healthcare providers or emergency responders may elect to exclude employees from this leave, and any employers with 25 or fewer are not required to restore an employee once the leave has been exhausted, if the position held by the employee when the leave commenced does not exist due to conditions of, emergency or public health emergency. So there's a lot that goes into this leave. This is just briefly going over some of the qualifications and requirements. But I highly recommend that if this is something that your employees are interested, or something that your business might need, or that will, go into effect, then I would highly recommend that you contact an FMLA specialist or contact someone who knows how to do this very well, just because it is a lengthy process. I know that the Secretary of Labor has authorized or has issued regulation regarding exemptions. There's still, as of right now, from what I've searched, I haven't found as to how or when to do it, but they have gone into a little bit deeper on, who is qualified for it. So excluding certain healthcare providers and emergency responders from the definition of eligible employee, and exempt small business with fewer than 50 employees. We'll kind of exempt them from both leaves. Now, I can go into a little bit deeper of that if you want.
Yeah, because I think that's on everybody's mind right now, especially, the majority of dentists out there
Mhm.
have a smaller practice. They don't have 50 or more employees. And so all of them are waiting and wondering, like, how can I apply for this exemption? Is it too late, or where do we go from that?
Yeah. So essentially, the question that everyone's asking is, when does the small business exemption apply to exclude small businesses from the provisions of the Emergency Pay Leave Act and Emergency Family Medical Leave Expansion Act? So an employer with fewer than 50 employees, so small business, is exempt from providing a paid sick leave due to school or place of care closure or childcare provider unavailability from the COVID-19, or B, expanded family medical leave due to school or place of care closures or childcare provider unavailability due to COVID-19 related reasons. When doing so would jeopardize the viability of the small business. So essentially what this all means in like smaller terms is if you have employees who are eligible for this, because you don't have the financial capability to provide this leave, it's going to cause financial hardship, then you're eligible for this exemption. Now, I did read that, you have to document and explain as to why this would cause financial hardship. So that would be something that, small businesses, dental practices could go into and explain and kind of have that documentation ready. As far as to where to submit it and how to apply for it, there's still no specific information on that. And I'm sure that as the days come, they will provide more information, but just be aware that at least you have some sort of documentation as to, this is going to cause financial hardship in my practice, and have that ready to go whenever the time comes. So the other question I also have seen is, if I'm a small business with fewer than 50 employees, am I exempt from the requirements to provide paid sick leave or expanded family medical leave? So yes, essentially is the answer. A small business is exempt from certain paid leave and expanded family medical leave requirements if providing an employee such leave would jeopardize the viability of the business, like I just mentioned. So this means a small business is exempt from mandated paid leave or expanded family and medical leave requirements if one employer employs fewer than 50 employees. Leave is requested because the child school or place of care is closed, or the provider is unavailable, or 3, an authorized officer of the business has determined that at least one of the 3 conditions described in those 2 questions is satisfied. So one of those 3 reasons have to be determined even before you are thinking about exempting or the exemption of this. So if one of your business meets one of those 3, then you essentially are eligible for the exemption. So that's kind of like a good step forward for you, just so you're not kind of having to, worry too much about, providing this leave and it causing financial hardship for your business.
So I guess one question I'm going to throw at you is that so let's say it's going to take another week or 2 before we actually get some more solid information on how to apply for exemption. What's your recommendation for practices? Because it sounds like there's that 2-week buffer, right, before the FMLA applies. So just kind of getting them to use their PTO.
So from what I've seen and from, my experience with our clients is, if you're thinking, which, I mean, I know a lot of the times now, a lot of the dental practices due to, the stay-at-home orders, depending on where you're located, have closed, and they're only open for emergency procedures. So a lot of the times, majority of their employees have been laid off due to the circumstances, and, they filed for unemployment. So if that's the route that you've taken, I just would recommend, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I would recommend talking to your employment lawyer, but kind of going that route just because you've already, I wouldn't say it's the easiest route because you do have to, unfortunately let go of your team, but more of that's the route that's been cleared and more easily accessible, I would say, just because it's more laid out, there's more information on it, and it just makes it easier for the employer to kind of go that route. If you do have employees who are eligible for this and you are still open, definitely take time to look and research what is required, what you need to do. And with those 2 weeks buffers, definitely use their PTO, or if they don't have any more PTO, maybe let them, to continue to take PTO. And then whenever you open again, you can make them pay that back or earn it back essentially. Just because, it's such an uncertain time that we don't even know when this might, subside. So, right. Yes, you want to think cautiously because it is your business, but you also, this is not only affecting one person, it's affecting the whole world. Exactly. So you want to make sure that not only you, but your employees are, taken care of.
Definitely. No, those are great suggestions. And what about some options that have been released right now to provide some like financial options and support to these smaller businesses?
Yeah, of course. So not only is this affecting, financial issues are affecting dental practices, but all around small businesses everywhere. So a few things that I wanted to mention before I get into the act that they just passed, the CARES Act, is there are ways for you to get some sort of money in order for you to provide for your team, if that's a way that you want it to go. So one of them would be, contact your bank first, see what options they're giving. Banks are now giving 60 to 90 days of deferred payments, so you don't have to, accumulate interest, or something happens where you can't pay the banks, then they're doing 60 to 90-day deferred payments. Or you can email your bank with the subject line payment relief for commercial loans to see what options you have there as well, so you can get that available and see if that's something that you want to pursue. You can also consider your retirement plan. If you have a retirement plan of 401k, profit sharing plan, or a cash balance plan, you may borrow up to $50,000 of vested interest to be repaid over the 5-year period. Now, if you have a cash balance plan, you can freeze it now before your employees accumulate 1,000 hours. Now, all of this financial information that I'm going to say, I've attended a few webinars throughout the past few weeks to be knowledgeable about everything and make sure that I'm providing everyone and our clients the right information. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an accountant. Not necessarily great with numbers. So I want to advise you to contact your accountant, CPA, anybody that helps you with that, just so you are aware and you make sure that you're providing the correct information and are applying it the right way. So these are just ideas that I can throw at you and give you. But essentially, make sure that you contact your accountant, CPA, or whoever you go to for financial advice or help. And you can also contact your credit card companies, ask for leniency with interest rates to make sure that that is the best possible outcome that you can get. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but they have changed the deadlines for the tax returns. So to file your individual income tax returns, you have to file them before or by July 15th. Normally it's April 15th, but since everything's happening, it's been pushed back. So now it's on July 15th. Now you can file for an extension if you need more time to make your 401k profit sharing contributions. But just remember, put a date in your calendar. July 15th should be when you apply or you submit your tax returns in order for you to get that back. Now, I kind of wanted to go into, I know there's been a lot of buzz about, the federal government providing some sort of payment for Americans to, get some sort of relief. And there's a lot of information about that. So this will be based on your 2018 or 2019 income tax return. So if you're a single tax filer who has who makes $75 a year or less, you're going to get a $1,200 check. So $1,200. Now, if you make more than that, the amount that you will get will be slightly reduced depending on how much you make. And I think the max that you can make is $99,000. And then, the price that you'll get back will be a lot less. If you're filing jointly, if you're married and filing your joint tax, then couples who make $150,000 a year or less would get, the double amount. So $2,400 a check from the IRS. And if you have children, all tax filers who claim their children will get $500 per child. So these are just the numbers that they've provided. Now calculating and how much you're going to get back, that's something that, again, talk to your accountant. I don't want to give you the wrong number. But essentially that's how much you would get. Now, because of this information, unfortunately, the world that we live in, some people are, wanting to get this service and wanting to get this relief. And so just be aware of maybe IRS phishing schemes. Make sure that don't provide anyone your, account information or financial information. The IRS will never call you or email you. They are going to contact you through letters in the mail. That's the only way the IRS will contact you. So if they call you or email you, first, don't provide information through email or anything, but just make sure that you've been cautious and aware. So if they do contact you, it'll be through a letter in the mail, and it'll have, their little symbol in the letter. So just make sure that you're cautious of that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably going to be a lot of those phishing scams right now. There was, to begin with, a lot. before.
Mhm.
And so now this is probably a great opportunity for they're thinking in their mind, let's capture this and get all $1,200 checks or
Mhm.
whatever, but trying to get some information from us. So I'm going to ask you some big questions now about the CARE Act.
Mhm.
Now
Yeah.
that information was just released. So I know there's a lot of questions circling around that.
Yeah. So the CARES Act is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. It's a mouthful, just like the FFCRA. But essentially, we're just going to call it the CARES Act. So this bill goes into effect 15 days after the president signs it. So the president signed it on March 27th. It'll go into effect 15 days from that date. So this will obviously impact a lot of people, but there's different options that they've provided for small businesses to get some sort of relief out of it. So the Small Business Association kind of has provided loans available for dentist owners and or small businesses. So it's not just for dental practices. So the first one is called the EIDL, or the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And so this essentially establishes an emergency grant to allow dental practices to apply for an EIDL loan to receive in advance on that loan of no more than $10,000, which the SBA, Small Business Association, must distribute within 3 days. So essentially, if you apply for this, you are going to get $10,000. You don't have to pay that back. And then if you are either denied or accepted for the loan, then you'll get more after that. And I can go into more detail as to how to apply. So a lot of people have applied, and from what I've read and from what the webinars that I've seen, a lot of people have been there's like a 90% or so rate of approval. And so even if you don't get approved, you still get that $10,000 grant for you to use for, payrolls or for anything in your practice. So because there's such high demand, the SBA website is working, some sporadically, sometimes it does glitches. So this is only available through their website. And you can go to, disasterloan.sba.gov and apply. I would highly recommend that you print out the paper application and fill it out, because if you do it online, sometimes it glitches. And then if it doesn't save, then you're going to have to do it all over again. And so you can just upload it through the website and avoid having any of those traffic issues.
That's a smart idea.
Another recommendation, which is big recommendation, do this application with your CPA or accountant. There's a lot of information that's just gibberish, and I don't understand it. I'm sure people who are not accountants or numbers people are not going to understand. So definitely, when you do this, have your accountant with you and make sure that they're helping you apply for this as well. And then if you apply for this loan, you can request an emergency grant up to $10,000, which the SBA must provide within the first 3 days of the grant. This grant will not have to be repaid, even if you're not approved for the loan. And if you apply for the loan before the grant, so you apply for the grant first, and then you apply for this emergency and disaster loan. So it's two different things. So you have to apply for the grant first in order for you to get it, and then you can apply for the loan itself.
Okay.
And so the terms for this loan is going to be a 3.75 interest rate, up to 30-year repayment, 12 months of no payment. So the first year you don't have to, you're not going to pay, and the interest is not going to happen up until that first year. It's going to be 3.75 interest, and you can repay it in a 30-year time span. Credit score of applicants is the primary factor of approval, and the government has provided $10 billion for this grant program, and the grant is based on first come, first serve. So once that $10 billion runs out, then unfortunately that grant is not going to be available anymore. So time is of the essence. So if you are just thinking about it, just go ahead and apply. Even if you just get the 10,000, that's still something that you can do with that. And you can provide that. So the SBA will determine the amount for the loan, and the loan is available to pay for expenses that could have been met if this disaster has not occurred. So this includes payroll or other operating expenses that your practices might have. So even if you, like I said, even if you don't get this loan, you still have that money, the 10,000 that you could potentially use for those expenses or any other operating expense that you might have. And again, use your CPA.
Yeah, no, I think that's great options. And thanks so much for walking us through that because, like you said, the time is of the essence. If it's first come, first serve, we don't want to keep waiting and seeing, weighing our options. If this is something that you're leaning towards, talk to your CPA, get all the information and get going on there because I'm sure there's a lot of people who are trying to utilize that as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's something that, time is always of the essence, I would like to say. Preparation is key. And I know with this whole pandemic happening, it's been hard to prepare for something like this. But, things are, this act, like the past 2 weeks with the FFCRA and the CARES Act, things have just been updating hour by hour. So it's hard to read something and then having to reteach yourself. I know that's what I've been doing for the last few weeks, but I just want to, be helpful for, everyone who's watching this, our clients. Even if you're not a client, this is useful information for you too. So take advantage of it. And if you want to know more information, everything's provided for you in their website. So, and if you have questions specifically, you can reach out and we can help you, with that as well.
Well said. Well, thank you very much. What I'm going to do is I'll probably post the link on the comment section. So in that way, everybody can just click and review what those options look like and all the things that Isabel had reviewed today. I know that was a lot of information. So thanks so much, Isabel, for taking that time to put it all together, put all those points. And, like Isabel said, if you guys have any questions, we're here to help. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We'll be on tomorrow doing the same thing, but for the Canadian updates, because that, again, is changing by the hour. So we'll have all the up-to-date information there tomorrow. So thanks so much. See you guys then.
Bye.